și o să-l avem ca invitat pe domnul doctor Ewald Rametsteiner, deputat, directorul Diviziei Forestiere de la FAO. Hello.
Good morning, colleagues. Good distinguished delegates and colleagues. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here with you today online at an event that really is very timely and very important. It goes at the heart of many of the things that we do here at the Food and Agriculture Organization at the global levels. From the Food and Agriculture Organization, as you can hear from the name, this is an organization that is focused on food and agriculture, and forestry is part of that agriculture sector, which covers crop, livestock, fisheries, and forestry. Our members, 197 members, governments, and the European Union have set a strategic framework for this decade that focuses on a transformation of agri-food systems to be more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable. And we work more than in the last decades to make forestry an integral part of that transformation agenda. And we see that there is quite a long way to go. We have heard just now from the delegate from the European Commission on the emphasis on agroforestry. This is one area where we see that there needs to be more integration. But there is also a lot of need for integration in terms of how we look at local communities, how we look at farmers, and what they do with trees, with forests around their environment, in addition to us foresters, just like me. For the forestry division, one of the main divisions of the Food and Agriculture Organization, within that framework, we have developed a roadmap that moves this vision of a transformation that is more resilient, more inclusive, more efficient, and sustainable forward, maybe focusing on three important elements. The first one is to rethink a little bit the role of citizens and consumers. Citizens nowadays, also what we see in Europe, they really value forests very highly, and they want them not to be destroyed, and rightly so. But there is a lot of range of shades between being destroyed or being managed sustainably. And as consumers, the same consumers, we also know that this consumption overall is unsustainable. 75% of the material that we use is not renewable. A lot of the materials that we use are high carbon, driving climate change. So we see that there is a need to shift consumption to more renewable resources, to low carbon resources that are sustainable. Here we are with the concept of a bioeconomy, for instance. And that, of course, is a window of opportunity for a sector like forestry that can promise solutions to addressing climate change, to addressing also biodiversity issues, and to addressing consumption issues of non-renewable resources. But that needs a new contract, if you want, with European citizens as well as their role as consumers. A new overall solution-oriented proposition, what forests can produce, what forests can deliver to society for a better future of us all. That is point one, just how do we change the narrative for consumers? The second point is those that produce those goods and services, the land managers. What we see globally is we still have an issue with deforestation. And the equation is fairly simple. If forests are not valued by the economic systems, if those that manage land don't get money, forests disappear. 90% of deforestation is driven by agriculture because we need food and we need food cheaper. If forests are not valued, they disappear. So what needs to be more in focus maybe, or a shift of focus, is to balance from this view of forests need to be protected to forests need to be more productive, more innovative, more high value goods and services as a provision to society. That needs thinking from the side of policymakers, but it also needs thinking from the side of the private sector. And a lot of the private sector are actually small-scale producers, farmers, local communities. Not only big companies, they are important, but they are not the only player what we talk about. And that needs, especially also from a policy point of view, an emphasis on two things maybe. One is to help private sector to work differently with the private sector, differently with small producers. One is to introduce innovations, help them introduce innovations, enhancing value added of the material that we take out of forest as much as possible, as high value added as possible. That can be services, it can be high value goods, and you can basically nowadays with technological innovations replace almost any fossil fuel product. It's a question of time, scale, money, and risk, etc. There's a lot of innovations that can happen that need to be supported if they should happen. And that needs a lot of investment. Globally, we have around $60 billion investment in forestry every year. About half of it or more comes from the private sector. A lot of it comes from small-scale farmers because they are the ones that invest in their farm, in their environment. But we also need to triple the amount of investment that is done to develop and access new markets for new products, including climate products. Sequestering carbons is a nice concept, but it hasn't arrived yet at the local levels in the farmers' pockets. Less than 2% of the climate finance that we hear about reaches the local level, reaches the farmer or the local forester. There's a lot to do in accessing new markets and new sources of finance that need support by governments. We also need a lot more land and labor and material productivity, efficiency gains, both in terms of material and energy. There is a lot of potential to position the forest sector differently for green jobs and a green economy, but that needs substantive attention and investment on those that provide these goods and services. And what is also really a promise of the sector is that it is across lands. It's not urban, it's mostly rural, but it can connect rural producers and urban consumers. This inclusiveness is important. Also, the importance of linking small local producers with larger markets, larger companies that deal, that sort of trade internationally. So much more focus on producers that should provide these goods and services. And the third point is these environmental and social safeguards. They are essential, they are non-negotiable, also given that we face more climate risks, that we face more planetary boundary issues with biodiversity loss, etc. But I think also here we have to change the narrative. These are social safeguards on the one hand that should restrict certain activities, but they also part of the solution. It is part of the services that farmers and foresters can provide. And it's often new, innovative, young farmers that can do that. It's local services at the local levels. What certainly we need to do for a healthy economy on a healthy planet is to minimize the risk of systems breakdown. Monocultures on large scale, not an option. We have to maximize the resilience in the face of climate and environmental change, but we also can optimize the value added that local producers, local communities, farmers and foresters provide to society, and the investment and innovation drive that they need to have. That needs platforms such as these to reflect on how can we do this in a concrete setting, in a concrete policy frame of the EU, in a concrete policy frame of the government of Romania. And this is why I find this type of events so important, because it brings on the table a new dimension to many of the things that have been discussed. For FAO ourselves, we have put that into a forestry roadmap that wants to move that from vision to action, that has been endorsed last year by the FAO members. So we focus on 5 things maybe. One is to really integrate forestry more into agriculture and rural transformation policies and practices, including on the bioeconomy. We also position forests much stronger as solutions on productivity, climate, biodiversity, low carbon products, green jobs, innovation. We focus on 3 objectives. The first one is conservation, that needs to be there. but the second is rebalancing production, sustainable production, value-added production, and the third one is scaling up innovation. We drive this through three pathways. The first one is to protect, including halting deforestation, still a major contribution to halting climate change and biodiversity loss, but also we emphasize a lot on restoration, including through agroforestry, small farmers, productivities, land, water, soil, biodiversity aspects in restoration, but also productive material for a bioeconomy. And the third one is enhancing the sustainable use, including a forest bioeconomy. And here we look forward to a range of global events that we have been having in the past, but also looking forward to one that we will co-organize in spring next year on a forest-based bioeconomy approaches. This type of reflections and anchoring in a concrete forest-based country like Romania certainly gives a strong impetus in terms of how can we do this in practice, going beyond the concepts to practical realities, because there's a lot of issues if you look closer, of course, and I'm keen to follow the discussion that you have in the course of today. Thank you very much for your attention for today, and thank you for inviting us to be part of that process. Back to you.
Thank you very much.